Ring of Mendeln in Summoner build used to be the #1. Is it good in Season 4? Let's talk about it, and not only about Ring of Mendeln. Also, Ebonpiercer in Summoner Necro. Is the Deathspeakers Pendant actually worth it? What about Black River? Could Black River be a thing? And lastly, the age-old question. What if I have the Harlequin Crest, or the Grandfather, or Tyrell's Might? Are they good for any version of Summoner Necro? This video will answer all your questions, and actually have a Bone Spear Summoner build guide at the end that will use the Ring of Mendeln. Let's touch on said Ring of Mendeln first. What is the big problem with it? And why was it used in every Summoner build before? And the simple answer is, Ring of Mendeln was the only way for your minions to do damage. It does read exactly, every 6th attack from each minion is empowered, exploding for 31,000 physical damage. Now the issue with this explosion is, it is your damage. So if I am increasing my damage now, consuming 5 corpses, 40% multiplier, that would increase the Ring of Mendeln damage. The same goes for the Blighted aspect. This 240% bonus would increase the Mendeln damage. But if my minions now get 40x more damage while they're alive for 10 seconds, so the aspect of reanimation, and the same actually goes for the Cult Leader Paragon node, that 150% multiplier. So anything I do to push my minions damage does absolutely nothing for the Ring of Mendeln. So in order to get the most damage out of this one specific unique, you would have to wipe away any minion related aspect like Army of the Dead, reanimation, even the Skeletal Priest empowering our dudes to do shadow damage, and just simply play aspects to boost Mendeln. Like the Conceited aspect, for example, for a 25% damage increase while Barrier is active. And now we did try this first with a Shadow build. So we kick out the Golem, that we do actually have a chance to play Corpse Explosion, since we do need a way to stack up Shadow Blight even more. And the Golem gives us a 30% critical strike damage multiplier. And that's kind of what you want. The maximum in critical strike damage for Mendeln to go the highest in damage. Now the problem is, if you do that, and you're actually playing Shadow to boost your damage, you're kind of boosting crit. That's not boosting damage over time. That doesn't even work with damage over time, while you're just trying to get Mendeln up, and you end up in a weird kind of hybrid form build where you're trying to still get some shadow damage over time, but you're not getting like all the crit that you actually need for Mendeln. And then you're not chicken, you're not fish, you're some monster in between that's thrown together, and the build kind of feels better without Mendeln than actually with Mendeln. It does work though. It could clear a Pit 61, and technically a Pit 61 is the only thing you need to be able to do, because that is where you start getting Neath Iron. So if your build is able to do this, you actually are set for this season. Because if you can clear Pit 61, you can definitely kill Uber bosses. Tormented bosses is a different page in the book, and they're actually not necessary. Now, after the Shadow experiment failed, we tried it in a Bone Spear build, because Bone Spear is quite incredible this season with the new Bone Mages. They do have a little problem. Bone Mages are able to now shoot out spears every 6th attack. So if they have a good amount of attack speed, they do shoot them out even regular. But Bone Mages also consume their own life force to actually cast. So the faster they attack, the less they are alive. Now you can heal them up with Ray Skeleton, and we did use a combination of Corpse Tendrils doing Blood Orbs. So you get the Blood Orbs. Blood Orbs do actually heal your skeletal mages, and they technically do stay alive. That's a technically, because if you're facing a boss, and we tried, for example, Tormented Grig, who does some lightning damage, he actually kicks their asses because they kill themselves, and then he kills them too, and then they're kind of dead. The interesting part about the Bone Spears is, though, now that your skeletal mages are throwing, they're scaling with you. So if I am using the Deathless Visage to create these echoes after Bone Spears, does work with the Bone Spears from the mages as well. It was absolutely able to blast through tier 61 pits. Funny part here is that we could create an incredible essence regeneration effect with a Circle of Torment. Critical strikes with bone skills increase your essence regen by 155%, right? Doesn't sound impressive though, correct? But the resource generation actually adds to this. And follow that up with essence per second on gear, and that can be on your chest as well. Not this piece, not on the helmet, because you would be wearing the Deathless Visage. And suddenly you create a build where you actually don't run out of essence and you can just completely blast it away at any point and hold down your 2 button, which solves every issue that Bonespear ever had, because you need to stay max essence, and formerly you need to have a weird aspect of exposed flesh to then make this work. Incredible fun build that is super tanky and allows you to enjoy the beauty of Bonespear Summoner. More details on the build later. Now let's talk about the other uniques. First, the Ebonpiercer, and it is very good because it makes your blind go boom multiple times. This allows you to apply the Shadow Blight key passive effect even more, so you're able to essentially do consistent the 240% bonus damage. Now, the thing with Ebonpiercer is that you're going to be losing your ultimate cooldown reduction or your Golem cooldown reduction, your ranks in Hellbound Commander, and that's 4, and the Golem damage. And those 4 ranks in Hellbound Commander actually push it up to 105% multiplicative damage, which is kind of nice. Now, the issue with the Ebonpiercer is that it's shadow damage over time. And again, what are we pushing currently when we're playing minions? We're mainly trying to get as much crit and even attack speed as we possibly can, because you do want to do big banger hits with your minions. If I press the Golem button with a triple damage, I want it to have at least a 50% critical strike chance, and then just multiply up as high as possible with all the Golem multipliers. And yes, 2,500 is something you're looking at here, which makes it kind of not work so well for the Summoner build. And here now is the Deathspeakers Pendant, the second amulet, which faces the first problem with the non-temperings, but there's a second deeper problem. It says Blood Surge casts Mini Nova on your minions, dealing damage. Damage is increased by 10% per target drained by the initial cast up to 50. Now, this damage also just scales with you. So that's the base damage for overpower. So you have 2,000 base damage or 1,800, and that goes to overpower multiplier, your maximum life, your fortify, your everything, no matter if it's cast from the minions. The problem is that the base damage is so frigging low. If this was a bit more like Mendeln or the Ebonpiercer with like a 15, 10,000, 20,000 base, that would be great. But the biggest problem is actually, where do your minions stand? Because your Skeletal Warriors might actually stand close into the enemy, while your Skeletal Mages are not even close. Your Golem might also stand in them. Therefore, the Deathspeakers Pendant is actually only good when you're playing the Golem and the Warriors. Technically, you would have to sacrifice the Skeletal Mages for the overpowered 25% bonus. But if you do that, it is kind of weird because you have the skills already blocked and then you're using race skeletons, but you're sacrificing the mages. And if you do that, you can't really use Memento Mori, which would boost the sacrifice effects if you sacrifice bows. And then you're in this weird loop where the Deathspeakers Pendant doesn't feel really amazing and doesn't actually calculate your damage as much as you want to. You're better off just leaving it away, playing a minion build with Blood Surge regardless, and then playing Untimely Death, which now says each % of maximum life you heal beyond 100% grants you bonus critical strike damage. If you put this on your amulet and you're actually using the aphotic aspect to heal yourself with the Skeletal Priest, you're consistently healing because the Skeletal Priest heals tick over these 8 seconds every time, and it heals 30% of your maximum health. Now, if we're playing maximum overpower, we're looking at 40,000 health. So you're consistently over healing that to produce a consistent amount of overpowers with crits. Black River in minion builds? No. And the main reason is that you're not even playing Corpse Explosion in most of them. There are some where you can drop the Golem to play Corpse Explosion, but then you essentially have to make up for 500 million damage potential with your Corpse Explosions, and that is not what Black River actually does for you. As well as Black River actually lowers the total damage of your minions, because minions get calculated off your base weapon damage. This is 4,903 maximum. That's what your baseline damage of your minions can be, and then multiply everything out with a Golem, 2,500 multiplier, and so on. We're now playing Black River, that's only 2,000 damage for boosting our Corpse Explosion a bit. The Black River is more meant to actually play a build where you maximum out your Corpse Explosion. So your Corpse Explosion would be in the ballpark of doing 10 million, 15 million damage base. And then you're going to be taking the Wither node, which has a 122, 150, up to 200% multiplier on each stack of your Corpse Explosion. So if your Corpse Explosion would now tick for every second for 10 million damage, which is possible, then every tick of 10 million has a chance to do 150% multiplicative more damage. So 10 million times 150% again, and that every second with a 40% potential chance. That's a whole different box of the Pandora we'll be opening in the next couple of days. Now let's talk about Uber Uniques and the Harlequin Crest first. Gives you 4 ranks and 20% damage reduction, plus some cooldown reduction and resource generation. The 4 ranks are useless for minions because you're not getting bonus damage to your skeletons, not bonus damage to your golem, nor bonus damage to your armor of the dead. Yes, it makes Decrepify damage reduce more, your corpse tendrils a faster cooldown, and your blight slight more damage. But none of these is actually worth it, and you're going to be losing an aspect plus your tempering. The tempering not that much important, but losing the aspect is kind of stinker because right now that would mean I'm going to be losing 25% damage reduction for 20% damage reduction and 4 ranks that I don't need, while I would also lose my essence per second. Now, Harlequin Crest is amazing for a corpse explosion build and for a bone spear build. It can even work in a blood surge build very well and in a blood lance build. These are all ones where it does matter and does have a very good effect because you're mostly using the corpse explosion too. That's already 2 damage skills that profit from the plus 4 ranks. Now, there is one that actually works, and that is the Grandfather. And why does the Grandfather do so good? Because it boosts all our crit that we do by another 100%. Which is quite cool, especially if you then master work it up and increase the all damage multiple times in a row, or even more life, or all stats. Because all stats could be amazing to just hit all your Paragon goals. Now the thing is, what do minions need? Again, minions do want to do critical strike damage. So if your Golem now gets another 100% critical strike damage, this one multiplied up, you can do even more Golem bangs than ever before. And the third one, that's really good, is the Ring of Starless Skies. That's a 40% damage multiplier, just like that. And if you're getting a 40% multiplier, everyone should get a 40% multiplier. And you're using your skills, and your skills are actually even more spammable then because you lose less resource. Undeniable, a very good artifact that can be used on any Necromancer build. Ring of Starless Skies is probably the one unconditional item that whatever Necro you're playing, it is good. And not only the Necro, all other characters you're playing too. Ring of Starless Skies just works on everything more or less. There's not a single build where you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I don't want a Ring of Starless Skies. It is simply always good. Now to the Bone Summoner you've been seeing in the background, and yes, it's going to be using Blood Mist for ultimate easy survival versus bosses. Because at the end of the day with Blood Mist, you can just spam away your Bone Spear, Curse, Corpse Explosion, Tendrils, and whenever there's any kind of danger, Blood Mist, safety, and just beat those pesky bosses while you're blasting your Bone Spears together with your lads into them. Skill tree has to boost your Bone Spear the most, so every rank in there, Bone Spear making things vulnerable, all the ranks in perfectly balanced for that bonus damage. You got your Blood Mist, do your corpses, and then we have the Corpse Explosion with a Plague Corpse Explosion into the 10, 10, and 10% multiplier, with a lot of essence being created by Grim Harvest plus fueled by death. Technically, you don't need the bonus life for the Skeletal Warriors, but you don't want to have them die easy. Want a little bit more damage reduction, bonus damage, and the cooldown reduction. And here, very important for the Serration with the Compound Fracture and the Evulsion for the bonus damage. And yes, the Corpse Tendrils need to make Blood Orbs or your minions won't survive. Now down here, it's only Inspiring Leader. Nothing else is being taken. We don't need Hellbound Commander because that doesn't actually boost the Bone Spear damage. And lastly, Ossified Essence because that one also boosts the bone damage of your minions. For the Book of the Dead, we get the Reapers together with the Bone Mages, and then we sacrifice the Golem. We're using the Deathless Visage for that bonus explosion. We're boosting our critical strike damage as much as we can with the gloves, with the weapon, and with the offhand. Hardened Bones goes on our amulet for that bonus damage reduction, with Grasping Veins on the glove, the Aphotic aspect on the chest for overhealing, together with Temerity, because that's still the easiest way to actually create a barrier currently as a Necromancer. But you need to play the Ring of Sacrilegious Souls, else your minions die and you actually get to focus on resummoning them. Like this, they get automatically resummoned. You never have to care about your Bone Mages again. Plus the Ring of Mendeln for that super bonus damage. For the Occult Dominion on the boots for the double summons, and then the aspect of Serration for even more critical strike damage as we have maximum essence. Lastly, splintering aspect because all the splinters then do vulnerable, and that's our source of vulnerable, the spear itself plus the splintering. For stats, we're really looking for critical strike damage and overall damage on the weapon, plus some maximum life because we need at least 30,000 life. Now for the gloves, this is going to be critical strike chance and critical strike damage. Gotta boost that as far up as we can, and then increase the ranks to core skills or ranks to bone spear, whatever you can find. For tempering on the gloves, even more bone critical strike damage. That's the cute thing. Bone critical strike damage can be zoomed up super hard. And then for utility, barrier generation, so we create more barrier. faster. On the weapon, you would think that we're going to be going for skeletal mages attack twice, so they do more bone spears. The problem is, if they attack twice, they will also die way faster. What turns out to be better is that you just go for bone spear to cast twice, because you yourself can also spam away, but you can't die as you're spamming away. And then offensive, even more bone critical strike damage. Like just get the most out of it. Same goes for offense, critical strike chance, resource cost reduction, and then probably either maximum resource or maximum life. Maximum resource would allow you to do more damage. Tempering is bone spear casting twice, and even more, you guessed right, critical strike damage with bone scales. Our amulet wants critical strike chance, ranks to evulsion or amplify damage, and then probably more maximum resource or maximum life to not really be on the lower end. Tempering wise, even more critical strike damage, and then we would go for resource generation as well. And now we talked about this earlier, an insane amount of resource generation is possible with the build. The thing is, in order to achieve that insane amount of resource generation, we need to have essence per second on our boots and essence per second on our chest. And here comes the problem with the Ring of Mendeln that we talked about. Technically, it's better to kick the Ring of Mendeln out and actually go for the aspect of Torment. To have critical strikes with bone skills increase your essence generation by 170%. Because right now you can get +5 here, +5 there, then you generally have some essence generation, so you get around +13. You can regenerate up to 26 essence per second, allowing you to hold down the button and never run out of essence, which kind of kicks out the Ring of Mendeln again. So that's like the second option, either Mendeln or the Ring of Torment, which gives us even more temper chances. For the Paragon board, it's all about maximum life and then boosting your damage. That is more corpse explosion damage plus fortify, Dead Razor for the multiplier, followed up into the bone board, and here we're having amplify running to boost our bone skill damage and the resistance to all elements, plus more maximum resource. More maximum resource is more damage. Going over the bloodbath board so we can pick up the essence glyph for the maximum amount of critical strike damage multiplier, into the flash eater board for the damage to elites and the resistance to all elements with a corporal glyph that gives us also bonus movement speed. Then picking up some crit in the Send of Death board together here with the exploit glyph for bonus damage versus vulnerable enemies. Exploit could be exchanged for territorial if you feel like that you need bonus damage reduction. Ladies and gentlemen, what is it for you? Do you like golems? Do you like bones? Are you using any of the uniques? Have you found another interesting build you would like to share? Here's the golem build, and down here you can actually see all our experiments with Mendeln live and how we put everything together. Enjoy. Thank you for watching.